Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Comeback Stories with my man Donnie. As always, we're grateful to have our first guest here today. Our new guest, our second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth guest. Let me do that again. Welcome back to Comeback Stories for another episode. Here with my man Donnie. As always, Donnie, grateful to be with you. Always want to show you love off the top. We have an amazing guest with us today. She is a WNBA All-Star 2 times, as a matter of fact. Played for the Minnesota Lynx, was a Rookie of the Year, All-American in college at UConn, Olympic gold medalist. I mean, we could go all day with her accolades. We're excited to have Napheesa Collier today. Napheesa, welcome.
Hey, thanks, guys.
No, it's really dope to have you here. Here on Comeback Stories, we love to dive into your entire journey and start from the beginning. So we want to know, what was growing up for you like?
Oh, man, we're getting deep early.
Yes.
Growing up, I grew up in a small town in Missouri. Actually, it was really hard for me to get into basketball. I played a bunch of sports before even going into that. I tried to join a basketball team kind of late for, the town I was in. I was in 4th grade. And in the beginning, no one wanted me on their team. They already had like their cliques in the city. Again, kind of that small town vibe. And so we just created our own team. We got a bunch of girls from like the surrounding towns, and we killed it. Of course, those teams later on asked if I could be on their team, but it was too late. We already had like a championship team. We were traveling all over the place, winning tournaments, going to nationals, things like that. And then I moved to St. Louis when I was 16. I joined Incarnate Word. We won 3 state championships. That's where UConn saw me. I was playing with them. Went to UConn, got recruited there, won 1 chip my freshman year, and then lost 3 straight years in a row in the Final Four, which is tough. And then, I got drafted to Minnesota at 6. Won Rookie of the Year. It was tough. I mean, all like transitioning from high school to college was really tough. My freshman year was definitely like the hardest thing I've had to go through basketball wise. Just mentally, it's so hard, especially at UConn. You just like everyone going there is the best from where they come from. And so I knew it would be really hard physically, but just mentally, it was a whole different game. The way that he prepares you, and it's the reason why there's so many good UConn players in the league, and there have been. It's because, he takes you in the trenches first to like build up that mental stamina and to make you strong. And freshman year is like when it really hits you. So it was tough. But getting through that, it was a roller coaster. I lost my starting spot. I played horrible the whole year. And then finally it kind of just clicked when we got to the tournament. And then, I had a good 3 years after that. And coming into the league, I kind of felt that slump again, like I had my freshman year. But thankfully I was able to like kind of recognize that a lot earlier than before. And I, again, just flipped that switch. And then, the rest is history. I got Rookie of the Year. I was an all-star that year. Never looked back.
Well, I mean, in order to write a comeback story, it sounds like you've bounced back from multiple adversities just from what you've described so far. Like, what do you accredit that to? Do you credit that to certain principles? Do you credit that to just gaining experience and those failures being valuable? What do you, your resilience, what do you attribute that to?
I think just competitiveness. I mean, as athletes, we're so competitive, and that drive to win is so like fierce and ingrained in you. So I don't know where it came from. Both my parents are competitive, so I don't know if it was bred into me or like nature or nurture. It was both because they're competitive, and then just everything we did was like you had to win at it. And so I think when you get through those challenges, it's not the end. It's just how am I going to get over that instead of it doesn't even cross your mind to stop. So when you have that mentality, it'll take you a lot of places. It'll take you pretty far.
No doubt. And I feel like, we get introduced to adversity as far as, on the external and the internal from a very early age. Growing up for me, the first adversity I faced was people told me I was not black enough. So I had this mental narrative from elementary school moving forward that, this is going to be tough for me. I got to perform for all these people. I got to show them something that I'm not because I don't feel like I'm enough. They tell me that something is wrong with me. Was there any type of pain or any type of event that harmed you anyway, shaped you in any way from your childhood or as a teenager that affected the way that you looked at life going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the same way. My dad is African, like he's black. My mom's white. She comes from a dairy farm in Missouri. So really opposite cultures growing up. And it was the same. I was, too white for the black people and too black for the white people. And I went to a really, really small town when I was in kindergarten. It was the only place that my parents could find for like full day childcare, pretty much, because the kindergartens in our town, for whatever reason, it was like a half day. And I was the only black person in the whole school, K through 12. And my first like awakening, I guess, with that would be we were on the slides. I remember, I guess I was like 6, I was in kindergarten. And these two girls that I thought were my friends, they were like, we can't play with you anymore because you're black and we're white.
Ooh.
And I never even thought about that before. I mean, I guess when you're so young and it's normal growing up with a black parent and a white parent, you don't see that as like obviously you see other people look different, but you're so young and innocent at that age, you don't think, you don't think difference is a bad thing. You don't realize that in people's minds there's a divide. And so that was kind of the first time that I mean, I remember it still. So obviously it was like a core memory for me and it affected how I kind of saw life. I guess it was just like it took away a little bit of innocence in that.
Mm, I hear you on that. Do you feel like basketball in a sense gave you a freedom from those type of environments? Because I know there may have been emotions feeling like I don't know how I can win here with having both of me being both of these. Like you feel like you may have to choose a side, perhaps. Is that something that you feel as a mixed human being? Like, do you feel like there were times in your life where you had to choose a side, and with that, do you feel like basketball was an escape or a freedom or just a deep breath from that?
I think a couple times just in like a negative way. I think growing up, you really want to fit in. And again, like I said, and it sounds like you maybe went through the same thing. You're too, white for the black people, too black for the white people. You felt like you had to conform in some ways. So I did feel like growing up, I'm trying to be what other people want me to be. And thankfully, I have a really strong family support and they instilled that confidence in myself where I got over that and I saw the value in just being who you are and not trying to fit into a mold that other people have. And then I think more recently with like, we have this big social justice push and you can like use that how we're in the in between, we can be an advocate for, the our side and we can I don't know, I think it's just easier to see both sides and to kind of be a bridge between two such opposing arguments. So I don't know, I think it's you can use it to your advantage as well.
Absolutely, that's a really powerful perspective. We talk about the early pain, but we like to complement that with who were the first teachers. You sound like your parents instilled a lot in you, instilled a lot of confidence to be yourself despite the narratives that may have been hitting you from the outside. What were they teaching you from a very young age, and what do you value the most about your childhood experience with them?
Yeah, my parents, I mean, from a really early age, just taught me like the value of the different cultures that I have because, especially growing up, we had like the Africans, my dad's side, and all of them were African, and we had the farmers and like the like country people on my mom's side, and all of them were that, and I was the only one that was mixed. So they kind of taught me to embrace that. Like I have the benefit of having two cultures and seeing such different like scopes of life that a lot of people don't have. So I think they just taught me like the value in that. And so, I mean, I love my parents. I could talk all day about them, but I just, I thought they did a really great job of turning something that as a kid you might see as a negative being different and making it into a positive and saying like, this is what makes you special. This is what makes you who you are.
Hmm.
Mm. I'm going back to how you were commenting, first of all, with the basketball team, your first crack at basketball and trying to get on a team, and there wasn't any availability on the teams in town. So you created your own team, which I think is a great
Mhm.
lesson. And it's very easy, especially at a younger age, when we don't have the support maybe or the tools to actually be able to take action and not be the victim, or just basically take personal responsibility to make things happen on your own, and then to be on the slide and the slide and the kids not allowing you to play with them. There's a lot of, I mean, that's like traumatizing in many ways. But what I'm hearing in a lot of your answers is just a greater perspective, and maybe having those two cultures and having that foundation of your parents has given you that perspective. But I mean, do you have any other can you point to anything else that has allowed you to kind of see the world that the way it is today?
Uh, I really attribute that to basketball. I've been able to see and meet so many different people through it. Like I've been able to travel to different countries, travel around the world, and I think that, I mean, just naturally gives you a really good perspective because you're not stuck in one place. Even growing up from when I started in 6th grade traveling, AAU, we're traveling all across the country. Like you get to meet different people. So I think naturally that just makes you a lot more well-rounded. And then also just being on a team, it like you have to work with people whose personalities are different from yours, but also allows you to work with people who like lives that you've never seen. Just especially growing up in a small town, I wasn't exposed to a lot of different lifestyles. Like we all pretty much were like grew up the same in the same area. And so being on different teams where people from different towns, and then as I went to college, people from different states, different countries, things like that. Just seeing how they grew up and what their experiences were like, it just allows you to see the world in a different way. And it does give you that bigger perspective of where you grew up is not how everything is. It's not the way that everything is.
We talk a lot about self-love and loving ourselves and not being good enough. And I think in my experience as a coach and just even my own personal experience and anybody I've ever talked to, there's this story of the not enough story, which manifests in many different ways. How do you feel like, I mean, it sounds like you very easily could have had that story when you're too black for the white and too white for the black people, that you could have that not enough story kind of take you down a dark road. Was there any times where that not enough story was kind of hijacking your life into a messy place in your mental health? So I guess I'm curious, how did it help you? And then how did it maybe hurt you having that story or just going through what you went through?
I think so far as like as a kid through high school, like I said, I have a really strong family unit, and then also being good at sports, like that kind of deters that also because I'm the best in the area that I came from, so everyone of course like wants to be your friend when you're the best at something. So I think the first time I had like a real challenge with that mentally was my freshman year of college. I mean, it was so tough. Like the way that they try to prepare you at UConn is like he changes the entire way that you think about the game. So, for example, in high school, if we were to do like a backdoor cut, it would be a play. There is no like thinking on your own, like creating kind of thing. And then at UConn, our offense is basically like an outline circle. Like you have general rules, and then you work within that. You have to, basically expand your basketball IQ, which was it was so hard to do because physically you're exhausted. Like you're a freshman, you're playing with the best players in the world. Brianna Stewart was my senior. So, you're coming to a super prolific organization. And so there's just a lot of nerves on that already. And then on top of that, you're asked to like, you're exhausted. It's been 3 hours you're playing. And then you have to think at the top of your game. Otherwise, it's going to be, it's not good. So I think just having that pressure, like it was a lot. And I really, really struggled my freshman year just mentally. Like for some reason, I couldn't remember a play, and I've never had a problem with that before. And then once that started, that just got into my head, and it just like spiraled. And that's when I was saying like my freshman year was such a roller coaster for me. And finally, I just got to the point where like I'm done feeling like this. I hate this feeling. Playing is not fun for me anymore. And so I just let go. And once I did that, I became the player that I knew I could be. And so for me, I've really taken that lesson in everything. Like when I try to be perfect and I put all this pressure on myself, it's never good. When I do what I put in the work, I know how good of a player I am when I rely on that. I just found that it's always so much better for me.
You may have just answered my next question, but I was going to ask you, what do you think was the biggest thing holding you back? Was it the perfectionism that you were just talking about, or was it something else?
It was definitely me, just the pressure that I put on myself because, again, I keep saying this, but everyone at UConn is the best from best of where they come from. And so I just assumed, like, yeah, it's going to be hard, but I'm a good player. I'll be fine. And when I wasn't, it just messed with me so much because I know like my level of potential. And when I'm not living up to that, it's just so frustrating. And so that just got into my head and it just kept like stacking on. And I think I just snowballed it in my head. And for whatever reason, I couldn't get out of that loop until I just got to the breaking point where I was just, I'm done feeling like this.
What was like the lowest point? What was it, if you can take us back to that moment?
I do remember because I had already gotten to like that bad mental state pretty much. But for whatever reason, I don't know if we had an injury or something, I got like a starting spot. I had played a couple good games in a row, and that like added pressure to me. I'm like, okay, I'm a starter. I'm a freshman. I'm playing with all these great players. Coach is, he has this faith in me. I need to perform well. And I had sucked. And we were at Memphis, I remember. and I lost my starting spot at halftime. And I was just like, shit. That was really tough because I knew I was playing bad. I knew I didn't deserve to have that spot, which is just even worse, an even worse feeling because I'm like, I know I could have it, but the way I'm performing, yeah, I don't deserve it. And then he took it. And so I think that just that was definitely like my low point.
I gotta stop because she said when Napheesa, when you talked about letting go, and I'm tired of feeling this way. So when I let go, these things started to happen. My journey really started to commence from me being a better player, my IQ growing, and I feel like there's such a life lesson in that because I feel like so many people want to be so great or a master at what they do so quickly that if they're not that exactly when they want to be that, they put so much pressure on themselves. I've done the same thing on numerous occasions, and it's like when you allow yourself to say, I'm going to let go of the timetable on when I become great or the timetable on when I improve and just be present to this journey and enjoy it, like no wonder you were able to blossom from there because then from there, the discomfort and those challenges like being benched at halftime, you could be able to start to use those to your advantage as opposed to holding them over yourself and just walking under that dark cloud at all times. So I feel like for the people that are listening, like to hear what you said there and to really take that in is such a valuable life lesson. And I just wanted to stop and just acknowledge that you said that.
Well, I think you phrased it in a great way. Putting a timetable on it is really what messed me up because I'm like, I need to be good now. But when you know the potential and you're confident in yourself, like I know I can get there, but I don't need to do it tomorrow. You're absolutely right. Like what stressed me out was putting a timetable on it instead of just like enjoying the process and taking the journey to get there. Yeah. So I liked how you put that.
So much easier said than done. But
Yeah, and it's such a valuable lesson of the idea of like people think the pot of gold is at the end of the rainbow, but the pot of gold is actually the rainbow. It's the journey, and I think the attachment to
bars.
what I'm gonna get when I do this work instead of like who I'm gonna become because of this work. And I'm just going back to your adversity, and I can't even imagine freshman year being thrown at the highest level in that environment with that coach. What a gift to be able to go through all that.
Yeah, I do it again. It was the hardest point in my life, but I would do it again. It made me the player that I am today. So
What lessons, like what are a couple of the lessons that you would take maybe from your years, your college years or that specific year or that circumstance? Like what lessons are you still carrying on today and maybe they turned into tools or a mindset?
they absolutely turned into a mindset. And that's kind of what I was talking about with my rookie year. I had a horrible training camp. I scored like 6 points in all our training camp games combined. And I felt myself kind of reverting back to how I felt as a freshman, just like not confident in what I'm doing, that snowball effect of like, I need to be good now. And thankfully, I was able to like catch it and like realize that I'm doing the same thing that I did as a freshman. And thankfully, it didn't take me 7 months to get out of it again, only 2 weeks. But whenever I feel myself kind of get into a rut like that again, the lesson that I learned as a freshman absolutely comes into play. And it allows me to take a breath, to know that I've been here before and that I've gotten out of it before. And it gives me the confidence to know that, to be able to learn about myself a little bit more and know what those triggers are for me, I guess, and to be able to pull myself out of it.
I feel like there may have been the same opportunities for you to go back into that mindset when we talk about like you coming back and playing after your pregnancy, which I want to ask you questions about that as well. But what was that like as compared to these other situations? Were there similar thoughts that you had to battle through? Because it seems like from college to the time in training camp, your rookie year, and now after your pregnancy, you come back and you're bouncing back, and I'm sure that those thoughts may want to creep their way back in. Like, does it get easier, or is it just something like you get stronger along the way as you continue to battle these thoughts? What was your take on that?
I think the thoughts get easier because I'm able to like catch them, but for my pregnancy, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. I thankfully, knock on wood, have been really lucky with injuries. So this is the first like true rehab comeback that I've had to do physically. And oh my God, don't recommend. Like it is hard. And I thought as an athlete, I would just be able to snap back, honestly. And no, that's not what happened. I
Wow.
mean, it was really, really tough. And then I came back to the team 6 weeks after I gave birth. Um, so yeah, it was just like the hardest process that I've ever had to go through physically. And I think the fact that it was so hard, like right from the beginning, kind of leveled my expectations a little bit more. And at that point, my only goal was to get on the court, like be around the team, because the only reason I came back was to be around Sylvia. It was her last year.
Mm.
So I wasn't expecting to come back and win MVP. And I think that might be the difference. Like the other times I'm healthy, I know what I can do. I'm just not living up to my own expectations. And for this one, I'm like, there's no way. Like, you know your body, and I know there's no way that I'm going to be able to be back in 10 weeks, you know, how I was before. So that definitely helped just the mental side on that end. But, she's 9 months old now, and it's taken me probably a good 8 months to get to feel how I did before. So during that time was probably the hardest mentally. Not because there's a timestamp. I mean, there is. This season's always looming over your head. Like, I need to be ready. I need to be ready for that. But it's just like, am I ever going to be ready? That's kind of what it feels like, because it's such a long time for your body to get how it felt before. So just getting over that mentally was probably, the longest stretch that I've had to go through, where I'm like, can I do this?
Mm.
I feel like I'm going to ask something where it's going to take us maybe somewhere we've never gone before. But when Darren was asking about what it was like with the mental thoughts, but it reminds me of a conversation I was having with my partner the other night about hormones and like dealing with all of
Mm.
that and how much of a mind fuck that can be. And I remember an old ex that I had that was going through a process with hormones and doing the whole harvesting her or getting her eggs. And I just remember the emotional roller coaster ride that went on. I remember one time she cried because I used her yoga mat. And we don't understand that as guys, we don't understand that. Like, I'm taking it personally, like, what's wrong with you? But there's actually
Right.
like a
Right.
full, so I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm just curious, like, and we have a lot of female listeners, so maybe we can, and this is great education actually for the male listeners to be able to
Yeah.
understand that process. But for you to go through that and then also creating this comeback to get on the court and then be a mom, can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
The hormones are crazy. It's not your fault. Let me just tell you. Like, because there's instances like the yoga mat where you're like, okay, I know I'm being irrational, but I can't help it. But there's other instances where it's just like, you feel like you're 100% right. And then looking back, now that I have like a clear head, I'm like, I was acting crazy. But they mess with your head. I mean, obviously the hormones, like it's a chemical imbalance in your brain that's not usually there. So you're crying over everything, like you're irritable over everything. So, and then it starts to feel normal. I'm like, is it me or is it the hormones? I don't know. So I think it was probably rougher on Alex because he's the one that had to deal with it. But yeah, the hormones are crazy. And there's so much stuff I didn't know either. Like, there are hormones that relax your entire body, which was one of the reasons why it was so hard for me to get back in shape. Like, so your pregnant belly, your abs are on the side like this. So they're that spread out. And you have to get them back together where they were, which is not easy. And then breastfeeding continues to have that hormone release in your body, which makes everything lax. So you have no fast twitch muscles. So that means you can't jump. It means you can't go side to side to defend. And those don't go back for a full year after you stop breastfeeding. So technically, my joints are still not as like strong as they were before, or as fused together as they were before. So it's just like such a process, and there's so many different hormones doing so many different things. It's a lot that I didn't know either.
The women are the real heroes of this world. I keep thinking,
Oh,
like,
for sure.
man, we
Oh, for
we got
sure.
it pretty easy over
Oh,
here.
for sure. No doubt. Were there moments in your pregnancy where you had maybe like a fear of missing out on basketball, or was there pressure like you making this decision? Like, one, is this something that a lot of players in your league fear doing to start a family, and what was it like mustering up the courage to do it? If you were really having these thoughts about, I don't know, what's this going to do to my career? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so Mila was like a happy surprise. And so it's not like I planned her and was thinking about the season. But as soon as I found out I was pregnant, like calling my coach was one of my first thoughts, because I knew she had to think about the season. So it's definitely a thought in your head. And I mean, it's actually a problem now. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen like the drama surrounding De'Erica, and just like it's hard because we have a new CBA that has often awesome benefits for mothers. So like I got my full salary even if I didn't play a game. There's other accommodations, but it's still like the money comes off the salary cap for us. So it's still like it's a bad thing for teams because you're having a player that's not playing, but you still have to pay for them. And so it could still have like repercussions for the player because maybe I don't want to hire a player that's in childbirth that is straight or that is thinking about having a child or that, all these things they have to take that into consideration now, which is bad for the players. So it's still like kind of a bad thing that you have to think about. So, I mean, that's something that we have to change in our league. And yeah, I mean, it's always in the back of your mind. If you want a child, these are the things that you have to think about because it could have negative, a reaction with your team or potential teams.
For maybe a future WNBA player that's going to say, "Hey, I'm still going to go this route, despite what a team may think or despite what repercussions there are, because I want to start a family." How would you help them? What words would you give them to be able to focus on the blessing that it is, as opposed to maybe the pressure that is pushing them on the career side of their life?
Yeah. If they want to have a family, 100%, I would encourage them to do that. I mean, she's, the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it's so special. And there's so much more to life than basketball in your career. So 100%, I would say don't let that be the reason to stop you. It's definitely something you have to consider, but it shouldn't be a deterrent at all. And that's kind of my point with where we need to get with our league. It's so special to have a families and, if they are worried about the team, I would say maybe try to plan it so you can be back for the next season. But I don't know. I would definitely encourage them if they're thinking about it because it's just the best thing ever.
No doubt.
What are you learning? What are you learning from your daughter? What are some lessons from your new teacher?
Yeah, seriously. I'm learning that she controls the entire household, and I'm learning that I guess just like how to let someone be themselves entirely because with a person like I mean she's a person obviously, but like with an adult you can like converse back and forth like why are you doing this or what's your motive behind this? And with her she's just 100% herself. Everything she's doing is like based off of instinct. So it's just really kind of cool to see like how she goes about her day-to-day things like why are you doing that? And it just really makes you appreciate who people are and just like I guess who they are in like their purest sense because there's nothing that's happened to her to mold her
Mm.
like into a personality yet, but she has so much. So it's just like it's so I don't know. It's just like I don't know how to explain it properly, but it's just really cool to see like a personality that hasn't been molded. It's just like who she is. I don't know if I explained that right.
Yeah.
No, I feel that because like I'm sitting here. I'm not a parent, but I'm thinking like if I were to have a kid, like I feel like that would be the real true test of like unconditional love because it's like this little cute little person can do nothing for me. They cannot like, and I'm caring for them, all their needs, all the things that I have to do for them and serve them without getting anything in return. And I feel like that's such a lesson right there in love and acceptance of people where they are in their situation. Like we have grown people out here that are, babies and toddlers and emotional intelligence. But if we have to accept these people where they are, even though, they may not be producing a whole lot in their lives, like, I feel like something like that would be the ultimate lesson in teaching you, like, I can love this person even though they can't do anything for me because we love people when it's like, oh, they got our back or they can, give us a hookup or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it sounds like
Not only can they Oh, sorry.
no. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, not only can they not do anything from you, but they literally just take and take and take from you,
Right.
and then you don't care. Like you want them, you want to give them everything that you have, and the love that you have is so unconditional. So it is, like you said, just so pure because they're not going to give you anything. It's just, but then the way that they look at you, it feels like the best gift in the world. So it feels like they are giving you something because
Mm.
the unconditional love, it goes both ways. If you do become a parent, you'll know just like the way that they look at you, they feel that same love back, and it's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I had done some deep medicine work a little over a year and a half ago, and one of the integration questions was, "What part of you do you want to reclaim?" And for me, it was my childlike heart. I feel like at some point, like I didn't really laugh out loud, and it didn't feel natural to laugh out loud. And since then, kids, whatever age, younger kids, I live over on the beach in San Diego, and watching kids on the beach and just they're my teachers of that whole idea of never losing your childlike heart. I think as we grow older and pain starts to happen to us, our emotional needs aren't met, we start to get hard and we start to close our hearts and protect. And what I hear you saying and all that, it's just that pure, that childlike joy, that unbound authenticity. They're not worried about what anybody else thinks of them. So there's just amazing lessons to be able to sit back and watch them. That's what I'm learning. And every time I see a child now, it's like I just see the joy. I see them making sandcastles or running away from the waves. And it's a great reminder. And it truly, truly has helped me.
Mhm.
Getting back to like your mindset, mental health, Darren and I are often talking about routines, rituals, habits. What does that look like? Do you have a morning routine? What are your like your mantras, your affirmations, your anchors? Do you have a meditation practice? What does that look like? Yeah, what are your practices to keep your mind right?
Yeah. I don't have a meditation, but I really need to. I've been thinking about it for a long time and I just really just need to pull the trigger. The problem is I'm super go with the flow, but then having a kid like makes you not be like that. So that's another thing I've learned from her is like you have to be on a schedule and it just really goes against everything in me. So that's been kind of the biggest adjustment. And so now my morning looks like wake up around like 5:30, feed Mila. Usually go to a workout, lift, basketball, come back, take care of Mila for the rest of the day, put Mila to bed, and then we kind of have my like me time again. I love like reading, watching shows and movies, but my schedule kind of revolves around her. So she's kind of the one that has put me on that now.
Is there anything that you've gotten away from, like anything you'd like to be doing in your self-care practice that you're not doing now, maybe something you were doing before, and because you have someone to care for now and not you don't have as much time, you've gotten away from that? Or anything else that you know you want to bring in that you haven't yet?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to bring back naps. I was a big napper.
Oh, rest.
Mm.
Yeah. I do try to like because I know that mental health is such a big thing. I do try to keep like some of my same practices like skincare. I try to make sure that I'm doing my skincare every day, and it just makes me feel a little bit better just to know that I'm taking care of myself in that way. There, of course, there's a lot of stuff that I used to do before that I just don't have time for anymore. I mean, I could spend a whole day like I love binging shows. I could spend a whole day binging a show before, or like reading a book, or napping. So just things like that I used to do those before, but I do try to take like some time in the day just for myself. I would love to add meditation to it though.
You might be talking to the right person. I might be able to help you out a little bit. I teach yoga and meditation, and it's
Oh.
interesting that when I tell, it's usually men that I tell that I teach meditation, and they'll say, I can't meditate. My mind never stops thinking. Or they say, I can't meditate. I don't have the time to meditate. But meditation actually gives you more time because what it
Mhm.
ultimately does is cultivate more awareness. And then you start to notice the things that are stressing you out that you don't have control over. And the awareness is the first step in creating any kind of change in your life. And so when we are aware that our mind's going down some road and we're worrying about something that happened yesterday, or we're trying to change somebody that we don't have control over, the awareness brings us, we don't waste time on it anymore, and we don't waste energy. So the hack is it actually gives you more time and opens up your perspective and opens up your life because you're gonna be more aware ultimately.
Might have to hit you up after the show then.
Yeah, I got you.
That's the man right there. Trust me. Um, I want to ask you, like you said earlier, life is a lot more than basketball. How do you balance that going forward? As I'm sure you still want to have longevity in your career, but at the same time, having your daughter in account. What do you imagine the future for yourself looking like? Whether it be certain projects or certain fields, certain passions. Like, what have you come up with or thought about so far as what that might look like?
For sure, basketball, like career wise, is still my number one thing. I want to play for as long as my body will let me. And so that's kind of my number one goal right now is to make sure that I'm putting my body in the right, like, physical shape, I guess, to be able to do that because longevity is, so hard. It's like the hardest thing. So I'm doing rehab almost every day on my body, just making sure that everything's up to par. Obviously eating healthy, working out, things like that. Because I mean, my number one career goal right now is basketball related. And then other than that, like after basketball, like that's the million dollar question. I want to find what my passion is, and so I've been exploring a lot of different kind of career paths, I guess, because I want to be able to do something after I graduate after I retire that is like meaningful to me and not just a job that I have to take because I'm done playing.
Mm, I love that a lot. I'm really interested in knowing certain people's leadership styles. You're somebody that's accomplished a lot, but at the same time, you've also overcome a lot mentally and overcome a lot of different situations of adversity. So, how do you go about trying to be a leader and encouraging these young players that may have a 2 week stretch in training camp like you had in your rookie year? Like, what kind of things do you try to instill in them? How do you try to show up for them along their journey?
Yeah, so well, first of all, I haven't been in training camp since I was a rookie, so this will be my first one
Wow.
since then. Yeah, so we'll see how my leadership is in that specific like instance, but before, like especially in college, I would say my leadership style was show by example. Uh, but as I've come into the league and, become like more of a captain and like focal point for Minnesota, I know that my leadership style has had to grow. And so just becoming more vocal, it's not like naturally for me to be that kind of person. But over the years, I feel like I've grown in that area. And it's something that I'm really going to have to put to the test this year because I am the main person on our team now. Sylvia's retired. And so that falls on my shoulders now. So I'm excited to be able to answer your question better after this season because I'm going to try to implement everything that I've learned into this point into my leadership style in this season.
I love that because if there's anything me and Donnie stand on, it's that none of this stuff that we preach about or that we talk about or discuss, like we don't have any of this stuff completely figured out. We're continuing to learn, continuing to practice along the way. So definitely excited to see how that happens for you going forward. Really become a fan of the W over the last couple of years. Real good friend of the show, Kelsey Plum. Really just being in that environment, seeing your team come to town, really all the teams in the league. But I say all that to say I'm excited to see what you do and the imprint that you have on the young players on your team.
Awesome. Thank you.
How do you, being the leader now, how do you deal with pressure? Are there tools? How do you work through it? Who do you talk to? What does that look like these days?
Um, I've actually never minded like outside pressure before. I think I'm definitely my hardest critic. So outside pressure, I think that just makes you better. So I actually like when we have those kind of pressures, and the way that I think I deal with it is I don't know. Especially, I think when I get off the court, I just really decompress. So I don't want to watch, especially if I'm going through a slump. Like the way that to get me out of it the fastest is I don't want to watch like film. I don't want to watch basketball. I just want to separate myself from it, and it allows me to recharge. So if I ever feel myself coming under too much pressure from myself, or if I'm playing bad or something like that, I think just like separating myself from sports for a little bit has that's what I found is like kind of recharges my battery, fills up my cup again, where I'm able to go to practice the next day and attack it. Like I understand what I did wrong. I don't need to harp over it and just like start the new day.
I'm going back to what you said earlier. I might be biased about the meditation thing, but I'm thinking back to what you said about you will play for as long as your body allows you to. And I think this is the power, the essence of meditation and mindfulness, and really understanding the power of the mind-body connection, because our body goes along for this like emotional roller coaster ride by the madness that happens in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
And so the essence of these practices are to really use the mind to work for us and not against us, and to be our best friend and not our worst enemy. And I think a lot of times that voice, that inner critic who puts that pressure and that perfectionism on us can drive us, and it gets us to the top. But how do we make it sustainable then? And I think that's why we want to put more emphasis on taking care of our mind and taking care of our mental health, because there's no separation. So this isn't
Yeah.
just to sell you on meditation. I think it's for anybody, any high performer, anybody that's feeling banged up in their body. A lot of times, that big ass knot we get in like our shoulders and our neck, that's not physical. It's like it's coming from our thoughts. It's coming from our mind. It's coming from stress. And all stress is really wanting the moment to be something that it's not, right? So it goes back to that like awareness of noticing when we're trying to control something, and then we just got to let that shit go. And it's cool because Darren and I named this podcast Comeback Stories, and it has like multiple meanings, but a lot of the essence of meditation is to come back. So it's not about not thinking. People think it's like, I'm going to sit and not think. But if you try not to think, you're just going to think more, because what we resist persists. It ends up causing more. So you just sit back and observe what you're thinking about. And it starts to create awareness, because we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. That's what the research says. And 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts we had yesterday. So basically we're thinking about the same shit. And the things that have us stressed out are the same things that we were thinking about yesterday. But it's only through awareness that we can actually change that, and find a little freedom from like those patterns of thinking. So yeah, we can definitely talk more. I can talk about this stuff all day long, but it's just the power of the mind. And if we do want to play and we want our bodies to be sustainable and last in life or on the court, then we gotta protect our peace and protect our mind.
I totally agree with you. I think the game in any game is like 80% mental, 20% physical. You see so many players that, like, they might not be the most talented, but their confidence is so. I mean, Kelsey Plum's a great example. Like, she's so confident in everything that she does. It's made her a great player. Like, she's obviously athletic and talented, but there's players who are more talented, but she's better than them because of her mentality. So I 100% agree with that. And I think you see it so many times in sports. Like, if you're mentally there and you're confident in what you're doing, it can make up for so much.
Yeah, I mean, look no further than this guy over here in his brown shirt sitting at the table. I mean, that made the entire difference in my career. I mean, you can ask people like, I remember one of the first games that I had was a big game with like the Raiders or like a big nationally televised game. It was in 2020. And some of my teammates from Baltimore were like, about time. Like, he used to go for like 200 yards in practice, like regularly. And I'm like, and I look back on that, I'm like, the talent was there to be able to produce and make an impact then, but everything going on in my mind, everything going on in just my spirit overall was not there. And to be able to step away and to get those things intact and to be recentered and then to come back into the world with a purpose and to come back into the game with humility and a newfound confidence in myself to be able to just go through the process. Like we were talking about earlier, like when you were a freshman, like to be able to let go and allow things to happen based off the way that I work and I approach it, bam, like things take off. You know, the platforms come, the brand comes, the numbers come and everything like that. So it's all internal, man. It's all internal.
Yeah, as I've witnessed you on that journey, I feel like the two things that I've noticed the most that have helped you along that journey are learning to love yourself, which I love that the fact that we talk about this all the time. And I mention this often and it makes me smile every time. Like, that's kind of my thing, like my brand. I have a retreat that's called Love Yourself. There's shirts on my website that say that. And this just wasn't the way that I was raised. And it's makes me super grateful to have, share this platform with Darren, who for many of the world, they look at a football player like the masculine of all masculine, this manly man, but we notice we're not even really talking about the actual sport. We're talking about everything else but that. So loving yourself. And then I also think figuring out like your purpose beyond the sport, right? So it's like you do so many other things with your music, with the podcast, with your foundation, with recovery, that it kind of takes the pressure off and you're not so over identified with the performance of the sport. And your whole happiness is based on, if I do this, then I'm good. So that's what I've been seeing from my perspective.
Man, I appreciate that. Napheesa, where can people find you? I mean, I feel like I've grown a lot just in talking to you and inspired by your journey. Where can people keep track of you on social media, things that you have going on? Where can people find you at?
Yeah, I'm on social media. My Instagram is Napheesa24. I have a media company with my husband. If you want to make some money, you guys, it's through the lens. You can follow us on Instagram too. So yeah, those are the two main places.
What kind of media company? What are you doing?
Yeah, so it's a spot for a lot of athletes. It's just kind of a way for athletes to like take their power back, and you can host like all your content can live there basically. And then so if someone signs up, then you have their email.
Oof.
We were doing great.
We were flowing.
Man, that wind probably hit her house like that shit hit mine. Friday, my internet was out 72 hours.
It was
The Cox dude had to come do open heart surgery on the box on the outside of the house yesterday for like an hour.
Mine was San Diego. That was the day before. It was wild.
Wasn't it some Kelsey's mom was saying that there was a blizzard warning in San Diego?
It was outside of San Diego, but it did snow in LA.
It's like some day after tomorrow shit. Like you would never expect there to be a blizzard warning.
Yeah.
Man. Well.
See if we can get her back to wrap it up.
Do we like have a wrap up audio if she doesn't coming back?
Yeah, we don't. Our second one's not till 3:30. So.
Oh, we cool. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, yeah. Don't sell her out completely. Oh yeah, for sure. Cool. Probably the laptop died. I'll be having a heart attack. It's usually when I'm making a fire beat, bro. Like my laptop will die. Like I'll forget that it says low battery because I'm like so into it. I click X and then it'll go, and I'm like, if you run to the power cord and like plug it back in immediately, it'll like pull back up. You can save
it sometimes.
Yeah, bro.
Oh.
Heart attacks with doing that.
Oh, I don't. The only time I remember that was just doing some papers back in the day in college.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
But dude, we didn't even have. I mean, I'm old. We didn't even have laptops when I was in college.
Really?
Yeah. Dude, the internet was just.
What year did you go to college?
Like 95 to 2000.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Guys hear me?
Yes. Wow. Yes.
I don't know what happened. Sorry.
No, it's all good. Your computer die or something?
No. You guys froze, and then I didn't know what happened. I think my Wi-Fi went out.
Oh, it's all good. Okay. Napheesa, where can people find you? Where are some any projects that you have going? Just your daily life. We've been inspired by listening to you. I know other people will be as well. So where can they find you at?
You can find me on Instagram with Napheesa24, and then I have a media company with my husband called Through the Lens. It's for athletes. Just basically, it's like a place for athletes to take back their power in a way, where they can host like all of their content and reach their fans more easily. It just allows them to have a lot more access and control when it comes to their personal brands and making money.
Can you close this out and maybe just tell us, like, what would you say to somebody that is struggling right now, maybe athlete, maybe non-athlete? They know they're struggling, they're stuck, but they don't know what to do about it. Like, what would you tell that person?
I would tell them to just like take a step back from the situation and try to do something else. That's what always works best for me. Specifically, like in basketball, if I'm struggling with that, I try to do anything not basketball related and try to just get out of that headspace for a little bit. So do something that brings you joy, whatever that is, reading, going on a bike ride, going to a movie, and just kind of step away from it for a little bit and then come back to it with a new focus and like a renewed energy. That's always helped me.
So beautiful. And I think that's what I see when I hear your story and you sharing is actually what's coming up for me is perspective. And that's what happens when we take a step back. We can take a step back and see the bigger picture. And I just want to acknowledge you for your perspective and how far you've come in your story. It's been awesome to have you on the show. I'm super inspired and excited to talk to you more about meditation, because actually meditation helps you with perspective also. But I think you've got that part down, but we're always leveling up around here.
I need some meditation, so I'm definitely going to be hitting you up.
Yeah, it's been amazing to have you on the show. I feel like there are women that can learn and be inspired by you from childhood to motherhood and everything in between, success, failure, adversity. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being open on here and sharing about your experience. We're grateful for your time and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. I had a good time.
No doubt.
Thank you.
We out.